All right. Mike Tyson giving advice to Anthony Joshua that I think that Anthony Joshua should listen to because Tyson Fury has been there and done that. If your mind ain't right, stay away from Andy Ruiz. We're going to talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. Subscribers, if you are not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I want to say thank you to all the new Patreons that have been joining the Patreon, where we talk about the more political subjects we like to talk about sometimes on this channel, and you'll see it in a banner underneath the video when the video starts going. And also, I want to thank everybody that donates to the Super Chat. You guys are really what makes the channel keep ticking. Thank you to everybody who watches the videos. Now let's get into this conversation about Iron Mike Tyson, one of the most significant boxers in my lifetime, probably the second most significant heavyweight that has fought in my lifetime. Notice I say significant, not necessarily the best, because there's some people that say that guys like Lennox Lewis might be a better heavyweight than Mike Tyson was in his absolute prime. And I'm not going to argue with that. That will most times show up in the comment section. So just want to let you know that I don't think that he's the best, but he's one of the most significant, definitely one of the biggest figures in boxing. And then you have Anthony Joshua, who just got knocked down 4 times. Let me say that again. He got knocked down 4 times and quit against the ropes like this against Andy Ruiz. But for some reason, despite that shellacking that took place, Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua decide they want an immediate rematch with the guy that just knocked him down 4 times and made him spit out his mouthpiece and quit on the ropes. I don't understand why they would do that, but that seems to be what they're trying to do. And Mike Tyson is giving him a piece of advice about the fight the rematch. One thing that he says is you got to check your pride, man, and see what you're about when you go into this rematch. And I'm going to paraphrase the things that he said, but he said, look, man, you got to get your head right. That's the most important thing. Is he said, look, you got to get your head right going into this rematch. If your head is not right going into this rematch, you're going to lose again. And I have a hard time believing that Anthony Joshua's head is going to be right in this next fight with Andy Ruiz, especially because Andy Ruiz is refusing to take that fight in the UK. And so therefore, he will maintain his home court advantage. Anthony Joshua will once again have to get on a plane and fly over to the United States, the place where he had just recently received such a shellacking and couldn't leave the country for a couple weeks because he was under a concussion protocol. What is he going to do, and how is he going to overcome that challenge, that mental barrier, that mental issue that could very well have popped up after the fight, and I suspect was there before the fight? The rumors, where they say where there's smoke, there's fire. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Now the fire might be in an oven, right? Or on a stove, and it might, or in a barbecue, and it might, it might supposed to be there. It might be a situation where there's nothing wrong, actually, right? So it could be that all the smoke about Anthony Joshua and the issues that he had getting knocked out by somebody in sparring and before coming into the fight, and issues that he had in the dressing room. Some people were rumoring that he had a panic attack in the locker room before he was coming out. Maybe those aren't true, but those are, I have a suspicion, man, that in that instance where there's smoke, there's fire. So if he was having those type of issues beforehand, then he's actually still has to have more issues because his dad wanted to beat up Eddie Hearn in the ring, so he had to overcome that. Then he has to go back to the UK, and he's coming back to the UK not a conquering hero. He's coming back to the UK as a guy that let down his country. There was so much pressure on Anthony Joshua going into that fight representing the UK. He was a British gold medalist, right? Won the Olympic gold medal in London. Was the big rising superstar, the center of boxing in Europe. I'm not going to say he was the center of boxing in the world because that's just not true. People were trying to sell him as that, but even then, he might have been believing the hype that was getting blown and the smoke that was getting blown at him and thought that he really was this big global international superstar. He had all of these things that he was going to do, like become boxing's first billionaire. He was going to have endorsements, and all of that stuff is now firmly on the line again. And it's against a guy that he didn't just have a flash knockout. It wasn't just one thing he's got to look out for and avoid. He's got to learn to be a better boxer against Andy Ruiz. But one of the reasons that I think that it was important that Mike Tyson said it is because Mike Tyson has been through this. Mike Tyson, one of the reasons that I said earlier in the video that Mike Tyson was probably the most significant heavyweight since, or he might be, honestly, man, the most significant fighter since Ali. There's questions about who was more significant, who had the bigger following and the most energy behind him, whether was it Floyd Mayweather Jr. or was it Mike Tyson. Having lived through the Mike Tyson era and being around the same age as Mike Tyson, a little younger than Mike Tyson, but trust me, for people that weren't not around or at least weren't old enough to appreciate it at the time, Mike Tyson was absolutely huge. Everything about Mike Tyson was huge, especially before he went to jail. But when he got in there with Holyfield, man, all of that, you the baddest man on the planet, all that stuff went pop, right? But he didn't rematch. It really went pop with James Buster Douglas. But he didn't go into that fight with James Buster Douglas with his head right. And more than likely, he didn't come out of it with his head right. And I don't know if Mike Tyson's head ever got right again in a boxing ring because when he fought Evander Holyfield, he got a shellacking against Evander Holyfield. But Evander Holyfield is a better fighter. Bigger, he was big, he was strong, he wasn't scared of Mike Tyson. He had already seen Mike Tyson get knocked out by a guy that Evander Holyfield turned around and knocked out, that being Buster Douglas. So he didn't have a lot of fear about him. Now, if you would have asked everybody around the world and who was going to win that fight, people had thought that Mike Tyson was going to beat Evander Holyfield. It was a good bit of a shock to a lot of definitely casual boxing fans that Evander Holyfield beat Mike Tyson. But, with the benefit of, 2020, hindsight, having, 2020 vision and hindsight, we can say, well, that's really not that big of an upset because Evander Holyfield was also a very, very, very solid Olympian. He had a stronger amateur background than Mike Tyson did. He had already had really, really good fights at cruiserweight and was at the point in time, might have been the best cruiserweight in the history of the division, though admittedly the cruiserweight division's not that, it's not that old. But he came in there to beat Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson comes into the rematch even less ready than he was the first time, has a mental blow up, bites a guy's ear off because he can't deal with that them headbutts that Evander Holyfield was throwing at him, and he implodes. I don't think Mike Tyson never really recovered from the James Buster Douglas fight. Now, he was able to make a lot of money because he's Mike Tyson. He was able to have, fight that second tier of heavyweights. Man, they couldn't really touch Mike Tyson, the second tier of heavyweights. But he never got back to where he was before the James Buster Douglas fight. Of course, he goes and fights Lennox Lewis, and his head was so unright for the Lennox Lewis fight that they actually put the guy, I believe, on antidepressants into the ring just to make sure that, he didn't wind up biting Lennox Lewis in the neck. Like, they got to get this dude in the ring, but we got to make sure that when he gets in the ring, that he doesn't do anything that is just so out of sorts that it embarrasses the sport of boxing, puts a Lennox Lewis in risk, all that good stuff. So all that bad stuff, excuse me. So when you look at this thing that Mike Tyson's saying about to Anthony Joshua, I think that it is critically important that Anthony Joshua listen. The people around him listen. Because if Anthony Joshua goes into this fight, if he wasn't right in the head going in, you need to take time, because he had I think he had hired a sports psychologist before that, which would tell you the fact that he hired a sports psychologist tells you that they thought that there's some piece missing there, or some piece that could be made stronger if you want to put it in a positive light. But whatever the case was, there was an issue there. If there was an issue there before, that whooping he took definitely exacerbated it. And then having to go home and maybe considering himself a failure, despite, the brave face that he puts on, and I commend him for the brave face. That could even make it worse. But now you got to come back to the same scene of your trauma. Be very careful. Be very, very careful. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you think in the comment section. With that, I'm out. Peace.